As one of the best true scoring talents in this very deep draft, Johnny Davis should be on the Cleveland Cavaliers' radar with the 14th pick. There is plenty to love about his game and what he could potentially bring to the table if selected by the Wine and Golders. And with that said, let's dig right in. First off, let's start with his size. Davis is currently listed at 6'5" and at about 195 pounds. Whether he's rolled out as a starter or coming off the bench, his size will be a welcome addition to an undersized backcourt whose projected starters stand at a collective 6'1" in Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. Adding Davis to a group that also features Karis LeVert and Cedi Osman could give head coach JB Bickerstaff even more flexibility in regards to the rotation. We already know that the team likes to delve into tall ball lineups. Now let's examine a few of his on-court strengths, with the first one being his ability to get buckets in one-on-one settings. Davis does this in a number of ways. He attacks the basket as a driver very well, using his quickness at the end of plays to free himself up enough for tough shots. This often results in contact, which can lead to free throws or additional space needed to complete shots. If he was afraid of getting blocked inside, he certainly didn't show it this season, as he appeared to invite contact with bigs and players capable of rejecting shots at the rim. There is a deliberate nature to his game, and while he can play a controlled brand of basketball at times, the athleticism and explosiveness is there too, as also aids him in finishing through contact. There are a number of players who can operate within confines of the pick and roll in this year's class, but few are as patient and can score like Davis out of it. This will be an exciting addition to the team. Say it with me, the pick and roll is often the bread and butter of the Cavalier offense. Now I know y'all tired of hearing me say that. Now in isolation opportunities, Davis can drive right past you and looks at home doing so. I'm not sure anyone else outside of Garland, Colin Sexton, and Karis LeVert are capable of doing that right now. And speaking of LeVert, Davis is also quite skilled at pulling up from mid-range as well. Something that's become a bit of a lost art in today's game. DeMar DeRozan led the NBA in pull-up attempts, with most of those coming from inside the three-point line, and turned in one of his best seasons yet. Davis can already destroy opponents with this shot in his arsenal. He can really do a lot of damage with this shot from the elbows too. I don't know about y'all, but I love to see Jarrett Allen set a devastating screen to free up Davis for a midi right out of the pick and roll. I mean, this kid has a little bit of everything in his back, even the turnaround jumper. The Wisconsin product can create space in an instant, and it allows him to hit step backs and make difficult shots. There's a little James Harden in his game, so he can nail step back threes out of ISO sets and off of the pick and roll. For Christ's sake, this guy is even comfortable posting you up and then taking a jumper, especially when he feels he has a mismatch. These turnaround jumpers are just nasty. Alrighty, up next is his defensive capabilities, namely his on-ball defense. Now, it's not hard to notice Davis's frame and long arms upon first glance of him. At 6'5", I could really see him being able to defend at least 1 and 2 effectively, and maybe some smaller threes. And just like Isaac Okoro, Davis likes to take the challenge of defending the best perimeter player. There's a certain level of competitive fire that you see from him when in one-on-one setting. He hardly allows space when doing so too. He's not too handsy, which you see in some prospects who aren't yet disciplined enough to use their body instead of their hands to make things difficult. Davis doesn't appear to have that problem. And if he gets beat, he can recover rather well and block shots in the process. He can also force opponents into tough shots with his positioning and is more than happy to go through screens to contest shots. Dude just stays on your hip and can force you into kickouts when you attempt to drive past him. His length allows him to really contest pull-up attempts, which was a problem for Cleveland's guards in the past few years. But there's only so much you can do as a defender at 6'1" like DG or Colin Sexton, especially over players who have a significant size advantage over you. That wouldn't be the case with Davis. And with how prevalent dribble handoffs have become in today's game, it helps to have a defender who can get through screens and help stop threes from being uncontested. And in the chance that he gets caught on a screen, he can recover quickly enough to reject shots at the rim. Next is his catch and shoot capabilities, which he appears to have a ton of upside at. And so if you're looking at the raw stats in this category, you'll notice that he canned roughly 38.9% of his half-court opportunities on decent volume. And upon analyzing him, you'll also notice that he would most likely be effective in the corners out of the gate, which will bode well for the drive and kick game that Darius Garland and Colin Sexton primarily could employ. There is some microwave scoring element to him in this regard, as he can get hot at the drop of a hat, something Cavs fans should be well acclimated with due to players like J.R. Smith and Cedi Osman being the same way in the past. Now, he isn't Steph Curry or Dame Lillard or anything like that, but he definitely has range. I just wish his shot didn't have such a slow release. Gotta speed that up a bit. I could also see the potential for some movement shooting from him because of his ability to come off of screens and fire away. Alrighty, time for my least favorite portion of these breakdowns, guys. You know what that means. Time to rip some holes in Johnny's game. First off, Davis isn't really that quick of a player. And this is evident on both ends of the court, not just one. He can get blown by quicker players. Offensively, his lack of general quickness can really hurt his ability to separate from defenders at times, which can cause him to rely a bit too much on step backs, especially against good defenders who have the ability to get into his airspace or cut him off. This can effectively shut him down. Then there's his tendency to take bad shots. You cannot always rely upon contact to create space for you. That can backfire easily. And remember that mid-range pull-up I talked about a little bit earlier? Well, due to its slow release, it can be blocked at times. He just needs to speed up his game a bit. Alrighty, let's talk about another aspect of his game that might need adjustment to be effective upon joining the Cavaliers, and that is his tendency to stop the ball at times. One of the biggest complaints about Cavalier guard Colin Sexton in previous years was that he was perceived to have dominated the ball and stagnated ball movement. And although I believe that this is heavily overblown, many Cavs fans feel it to be true. Johnny Davis could end up falling victim to the same thought process if his play at the collegiate level transitioned over to the ranks of the NBA as is. Some consider him a ball stopper who can hold momentum with his ISO sets. This is most evident upon watching him hesitate for a second upon being passed the ball at times, instead of attacking the defense when necessary. There are often times at which he could drive to the paint and look for open shooters once the defense collapses upon him, and he opts for a tough pull-up attempt instead. This may not be an inherent part of his game, and I don't know if it can be taught, but it would certainly help if you look to pass more. ISO ball may not be tolerated but past a certain point in JB Bickerstaff's offense. It will likely be a last resort of sorts, although I have to say that having a guy who can score out of isolation is great at times. And last but certainly not least is his consistency as a shooter. Look, it's normal for any three-point shooter to go through slumps or rough patches or however you want to term it, but the one thing that has to happen when you are in a slump is that you have to add value in other ways. Davis may have to do that from time to time because he is prone to consistency woes. Now, while we've seen this from the likes of Cedi Osman, it should be a different case for Davis because we know him to play great defense when his shot is off. He shot 30.6% from range this season, which was obviously affected by how badly the season finished in that regard. Davis shot 20.8% from three-point range over his last 15 games of this past season. His final stat line would likely have been markedly higher if he's been more consistent over that stretch. I think a lot of this is the result of what we mentioned earlier in trying to play ISO ball so frequently, which resulted in a lot of bad shot attempts. All in all, Davis has his warts as a young prospect, but he will be an enticing option if available come draft day for the Cavs. He is perhaps the best scorer of the prospects who may be available in Cleveland is up at the podium. And as anyone who watched this team this season knows all too well, the Cavs did not feature enough players who could create their own offense when the offense breaks down and the defense is taking everything away. Colin Sexton is perhaps their best in this regard, and once he went down, it was pretty much on the shoulders of Darius Garland. It got really bad when Ricky Rubio went down. GG was forced to carry our gargantuan load on his back from that point, and then the team opted to trade for LeVert, which hasn't panned out entirely just yet. That cannot happen again next season, and adding Johnny Davis could help prevent that from occurring once more.